Then in 2021, funeral home staff in Shantung stole the ashes of a female internet celebrity titled World's Deadliest Food Items, effectively self-mummifying themselves. In 2015, it was reported that 14 female corpses were stolen in just one village. Coaxed into drinking pesticide live on Douyin. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we have a very interesting topic. We are talking about Asia's most forbidden occult practices. Throughout all of human history, there have been several rare and forbidden rituals practiced by cultures from all around the world. Today we'll be talking about some of these rituals in Asia, and perhaps one of the most interesting and morbid practices ever recorded is Sokushinbutsu, or self-mummification. As you can tell from the name, the term Sokushinbutsu originated from Japan, and it is a type of Buddhist mummy where Buddhist monks observe asceticism to the point of death, entering mummification while alive. The goal was to take the body to the point of near death, which would then harden the soul, and when someone died while in the state of meditation, their soul would be in perpetual meditation after death. So that was the goal. If one were to achieve this, they would be considered to have reached the state of Buddha, or total spiritual enlightenment. The term Sokushinbutsu essentially means Buddha while in his body. A famous example would be the altar in the Honmyoji temple, which continues to preserve one of the oldest mummies, that of the Sokushinbutsu ascetic named Honmyokai. He looks so peaceful. He's just chilling in his little office, just resting. As of date, there have only been 17 real and recorded successful attempts at Sokushinbutsu, so it's a very, very exclusive club. Although there have been hundreds, if not thousands, of monks who tried doing so, most of them actually fail in completing the entire process, because this process leading up to self-mummification is an extremely long and grueling task that only the most dedicated monks undertake. The process, in most cases, would take just shy of a decade to complete. 10 years. The first step is known as mokujiki, which literally means eating a tree, because that's exactly what they did. The goal was to reduce one's diet to the bare minimum to keep a human alive, and this diet consisted of things foraged from the forest, like tree bark, pine needles, and seeds. Spiritually, this was to bring down the body's form in order to elevate the spirit, but physically, what this was doing is removing all fat from the body as well as starving out bacteria from the body. Basically like an ultimate detox. So ladies, you can now ditch your spin classes and Pilates session and try this new thing that I'm trying to bring into Singapore called Sokushinbutsu. It's completely free and you can be as skinny as this guy. Wouldn't you want to be like that? So skinny, wow. The reason that these monks go on such a severe diet is to starve out the bacteria within the body, so that when their soul leaves the body, there won't be any bacteria left to break down their cells from within. Hence, the body won't decompose, effectively self-mummifying themselves. How these monks knew about this hundreds of years ago, we don't really know, but I realize that science catching up to mysticism has always been a common theme. These monks would then continue on this diet for 3,000 days, or just over 8 years. As you can imagine, it was very common for practitioners to die during this part of the process. I mean, you're basically starving yourself for 3,000 days, surviving on pine needles, tree bark. Oof. If a monk died during this preparation stage, he would be buried and honored, but he was not declared to have reached Sokushinbutsu, and he would be called a loser by the other monks. Like, haha, you died, you didn't finish Sokushinbutsu, what a loser, what a failure. Just kidding, the monks didn't actually do that. But after the monk has survived through this starvation cycle of 3,000 days, he would move on to the next step of the process, which is a complete fast of any food. For the next 100 days, the monk would exclusively drink saline water, basically salt water, and urushi tea, which if you Google urushi tea, you immediately get slapped with an article titled World's Deadliest Food Items, because this tea is actually poisonous. Urushi tea has been banned in Japan because it causes severe dehydration and causes fluids within the body to exit through its various orifices, like your nose, your ears, your butt, all the holes in your body. Fluid will just rush out after you drink this tea. Wouldn't you want to be like that? So skinny. Wow. So even after undergoing a harsh diet for 3,000 days, the monk would still try to further detox his body by drinking this tea in the final steps of the process. So you can imagine how scrunched up and devoid of any nutrition the body would be, and devoid of any, moisture, essentially mummifying himself while still alive. But drinking this tea has another benefit in this process. It makes the body toxic to any outside outside composters that may come along like maggots or worms. So now that the monk's body is cleansed of any bacteria within and without, it is now ready for the final step of the process. The monk will be placed in a pine box just 3 meters below ground. Now this box is not where you want to be. It's small and super cramped, and it only allowed for one person to sit in lotus position. So you cannot move, you're trapped, you're forced to meditate for eternity. A bamboo shoot would be attached to the box, providing air for the monk, and a single bell would be given to the monk to ring every day to indicate that he was still alive. Some reports say that the bell is placed above ground and attached by a string through the bamboo shoot, so the monk can just like pull the string and the bell above will ring. And this bell is to inform his other colleagues that he is still alive. And the moment the monks above ground stop hearing the bell, they would assume that the monk has ascended and he is no longer in this earthly realm. I'm just wondering, what if the monk, in his state of meditation, he lost track of time and he forgot to ring the bell? Like he missed one day and then all his colleagues thought he was dead and they just like take out the bamboo shoot. He'll be like, oh fuck, no, I'm still alive, stop, don't kill me. Because that's what they would actually do. The moment they stop hearing the bell ring, they would take out the bamboo shoot and seal the tomb with stone. After 1,000 days, the monk's body would be dug up. If the body has experienced decomposition, he would not be considered to have reached Soku Shinbutsu. But if he did, his body would be enshrined in a temple for worship, like the one you see here or here. So these are people who have accomplished this task, this grueling task. However, this practice has been banned in 1879 by Emperor Meiji, as he saw it as a barbaric practice, equating it to glorified suicide. Chinese ghost marriages is another practice that originates from China. Scholars believe ghost marriages date back to the pre-Qin period and have a history stretching back 3,000 years. 3,000 years, that's a long time. It's actually a very old tradition. In fact, it is still being practiced today, so I guess this isn't really a forbidden practice, more of perhaps taboo, but there is an even darker side to this already very morbid practice, but more on that later. Traditional Chinese beliefs say that when a person dies, their being continues to the afterlife. This realm is thought to mirror the living world where money, housing, and even marriage exists. So if you're about to die, you better buy a BTO in hell first, because you need to wait 5 years. Maybe when you're aged like 90, you're gonna die already, buy BTO for the afterworld. That's why in Taoist belief, they burn paper money and paper cars and, freaking paper LV bags. Nowadays got paper LV bags to burn, to be sent to the spirit realm, right? I mean, it's super common here in Singapore and Malaysia. And I guess because marriage and family bonds are so important in Chinese culture that even in death, parents would want their kids to get married. Because remember, many Taoists believe that life continues after death. Imagine you're chilling in heaven, you died already. Let's say you died and you're chilling and you're playing your PS5. You're a single person, you're a single man, let's say. Playing PS5, yay, I'm single. And then boom, your new wife materializes right beside you because your parents burn a wife for you. And she's like, stop playing PS5, why are you playing PS5? Shit. Many elderly Chinese also believe that if people die without fulfilling their wishes, such as getting married, they will not rest peacefully and will return to haunt the living. It is worth considering, are these marriages really to appease the dead or to fill some sort of emotional void and societal pressure on the living parents? The process of arranging a ghost marriage is a rather intricate process. There are typically 2 types of ghost marriages. One involves couples who died before they were engaged and their parents, out of love and longing, organize a wedding ceremony and bury them together in the same coffin. The other involves individuals who were not betrothed and did not know each other in life, but are matched posthumously through a matchmaker. How this matchmaker decides that the corpses are a good fit for each other, I don't know. Maybe he does palm readings on their decomposing hands, or he sees the decomposing lines on the body's forehead. I don't know. Parents would seek a suitable partner for their deceased offspring, inquiring about the other person's family background, occupation, age, and requesting photos. So quite typical of a normal living wedding. A wedding is then held and the bodies are exhumed and buried together in a new grave. In some cases, one partner in a ghost marriage is alive, but this is a bit more rare. The living person would participate in a ghost marriage ceremony using the deceased photo and clothing to represent them, sometimes even dressing a mannequin to represent the bride. But there is a dark side to this rather poignant practice. So most of the time it is difficult for parents to find partners for their deceased children. So matchmaking services have emerged. In fact, a ghost marriage matchmaker with 3 decades of experience says that the market is thriving in China. In the 1990s, arranging a ghost marriage cost about $700 but by 2016, the matchmaker said that had jumped to at least $21,000. So it is a very lucrative trade in China, which means dead bodies and ashes of young women have become valuable commodities. In 2015, it was reported that 14 female corpses were stolen in just one village in Shanxi province. Villagers said tomb raiders stole the bodies to make money. Police in northwest China charged a man with murdering 2 women with mental disabilities, alleging that he wanted to sell their corpses to be used in so-called ghost weddings. He sold each body for $8,300. I mean, not bad, quite lucrative. Would you dig up a body for 8K?
No.
But in China, that's like times 2, times 3 their currency, you know? So it's actually a lot of money for them.
It is a lot of money.
You just have to go through one grueling night of like carrying a corpse, you know? Then in 2021, funeral home staff in Shandong stole the ashes of a female internet celebrity and attempted to sell them to a local family for a ghost marriage. So I did some digging on this story and it's actually quite a sad and fucked up story. So basically this internet celebrity, she goes by the name of Luo Xiao Mao Mao Zi. Do you think I pronounced it correctly?
I think
I only managed to find the pinyin romanization. I don't know the Chinese character, so I'm going to assume it's called Luo Xiao Mao Mao Zi. And she had over 600,000 followers on Douyin, which is the Chinese equivalent of TikTok. And she was bullied by her followers and coaxed into drinking pesticide live on Douyin, which eventually killed her. But her tragedy didn't stop there, because even in death, the funeral home that was taking care of her body tried to steal her ashes to sell it. But yeah, thankfully the people that orchestrated this were stopped, so her ashes weren't actually sold. But to think that people would actually do that, that's so messed up. In modern times, ghost marriages are also observed outside of China. For example, in Taiwan, if you're a single man, you may be tricked into marrying a ghost bride. When a single woman dies, her family may place red envelopes along a road, and inside these red packages may contain cash, paper money, or even the hair and nails of the deceased, waiting for a man to pick them up and become the groom. Refusing to marry the ghost bride is believed to bring bad luck. That is so sneaky, man. Walao, damn bastard You just drop red packets on the floor, an ignorant man picks it up, GG. You're a groom! So don't ever pick up red packets on the floor. And interestingly enough, this exact scenario actually happened, because in June 2015, an article reported that a married man in Taiwan picked up an envelope containing a dead woman's hair and was intercepted by a matchmaker. He fortunately found an excuse to refuse and he fled. Thank goodness. And speaking of the dead, the next occult practice also comes from China, but this time it is the morbid practice of corpse herding. As the name suggests, it is literally the herding of corpses. This practice originates from the Qing dynasty some 200 to 300 years ago, and it is believed that no matter where you died in China, whether it's 10,000 kilometers away from your home village or just 10 kilometers, your body had to be laid to rest in your home soil. Naturally, this meant that bodies had to be transported vast distances to go home. During that time, transporting a corpse back to its home was an expensive endeavor, requiring 4 pallbearers for one body. Pallbearers are the people who, carry the coffin. So corpse herding then emerged as a cost-effective alternative in which a group of corpse herders would transport multiple bodies simultaneously. These corpse herders possessed necromantic corpse reanimation powers. Wow, magic powers! Where they would chant spells to reanimate the corpses to allow them to walk on its own back to its home soil for burial. I mean, that saves a lot of manpower. That's very good. So effective. These corpse herders would often travel long distances, passing through villages to rest, and oftentimes these rural villagers would be notified ahead of time before the corpse herders arrived, just so that the people in the village could prepare for the arrival of the dead. And when I say prepare, I mean avoid. The corpse herders would hold a bronze gong, and with every step they take, they would sound that gong. So something like an undead marching band. This eerie sound of the gong would deter the villagers from looking at the corpses, because it is believed that if one were to stare at the corpses for too long, it might just attract the corpse to be fond of you. Thus, you had to marry it. The corpse walker would also carry a white paper lantern and a basket of fake money that he intermittently showered upon the ground ahead of the corpses. So this was a way to bribe the deceased way into the next life, known as buying your way to the other world. As the corpse walker marched onward, they would lead a row of dead bodies, each shrouded in black with their faces covered in yellow talisman papers and their heads adorned with tall hats. And if this image sounds familiar, yes, this is where the famous Jiangshi or hopping demon in Chinese folklore originates from. But the truth of these corpse herders was far from what they portrayed themselves to be. Much of this was just for show, so that people would believe that yes, these corpses were actually being reanimated, and yes, they should keep their distance. It was all part of setting the stage for a swift, uninterrupted transport of the dead. Plus, it only added to the priest's status an aura of mystery if people believed that they actually had power over corpses. So, how was this all a show? How it actually happened was the corpse herders would apply a unique herbal medicine to the bodies which prevented the corpses from decomposing and softened the joints to allow the bodies to walk without becoming rigid. Then in a single file, the corpses would be tied to bamboo poles by their arms. Each end of the pole would be hoisted onto the shoulders of a man at the front and back of the line. Then off they would go. So the corpses were lined up like that in single file, one in front of another, with bamboo poles tied to their hands. That's why people thought that these corpses were actually hopping and moving by themselves. With each step that the corpse herders made, it would appear that the corpses were bumping and hopping along on their own. A priest would then head up to the front of the procession and beat a gong to warn people of the coming dead, which gave folks a chance to hide themselves or look away, as encountering the dead in Chinese belief is bad luck, as mentioned earlier. Conveniently, with everyone cowering and averting their eyes, nobody would get a good look at how the dead were moving, and they would just assume that, oh my gosh, the corpses are moving on their own. What? These corpse herders, they have magical powers. But it was all just a ploy. Today, corpse herding is banned in China because it was seen as counter-revolutionaries or engaging in superstitious activities and could face severe punishment, including death. But say you were accused of being a corpse herder when in fact you had nothing to do with it. One thing you could do to prove your innocence is to partake in a ritual in Indonesia called Sumpah Pocong, the ultimate oath that one can take in Indonesia. I have talked about the pocong in a previous video, but to summarize, the pocong is one of the most feared demonic entities in Southeast Asia, specifically in Indonesia and Malaysia. It is a ghost that looks like a person wrapped in a funeral cloth. In Islamic funeral, a shroud called a kain kafan is used to wrap the body of the dead person. The dead body is covered in white fabric tied over the head, under the feet, and on the neck. And the shroud is firmly tied at multiple junctures to maintain its position during the journey to the grave site. Upon placement into the grave, it is believed that the knots must be undone. Like this, it has to be undone. It's the most important part. Or the corpses would rise from the dead and be known as a pocong. So some sorcerers or witches, they tend to purposely not untie the knot so that they can create and control a pocong for themselves. Or so I've read. As pocongs are not bound to the physical world like humans are, they can move freely through solid objects. They have also been observed to teleport almost instantly from one place to another. They are found practically anywhere from their final resting places to their former homes. However, banana trees seem to be their preferred spot, similar to the Pontianak. I heard the Pontianak also likes banana trees. All the ghosts likes banana trees. I don't know why. What's so good about banana trees? So it is not uncommon for someone to find a small colony of pocongs happily gathering near or around banana trees. And honestly, that sounds kind of cute you know? Like a bunch of cute little pocongs just hopping around the banana trees. And I'm just thinking, like, pocongs, are they actually that dangerous? Okay, other than the fact that they can teleport. But do we have a picture of a pocong here? Okay, this picture looks quite scary now. Okay, I take that back. But if you actually think about it, pocongs are wrapped in a cloth, in a shroud, right? They technically can't do anything to you other than bite you, like, right? But you can just fuck off, pocong! Because their heads are like that. What are they gonna do? They can't do shit, they only can wiggle. But that's just me. Now, with all that context said, we go back to the ritual of Sumpah Pocong. Sumpah Pocong, or the Pocong Oath, is a highly controversial ritual rooted in traditional Indonesian beliefs, particularly on the island of Java, Indonesia. This ritual involves a person accused of wrongdoing or lying, who is then wrapped in a white shroud like a corpse ready for burial. A living person, he would wrap himself in a shroud, just like a pocong. And he would be asked to swear in the name of God that he or she family is innocent. For those who violate the pocong oath, it is believed to have very serious and even terrible consequences in traditional Indonesian beliefs. If someone who has undergone the pocong oath ritual is proven to be lying or dishonest in their oath, it is believed that God Almighty will bestow severe punishment, with the most extreme consequence being an unnatural or sudden death, or even haunted by a pocong. This belief is rooted in the understanding that the pocong is a powerful symbol that symbolizes death in Islamic funeral traditions in Indonesia, making this oath considered one of the most sacred and frightening forms of oath. It's like a super swear lah. I sumpah pocong! I never steal the wallet. It's like an ultimate swear. I swear! Sumpah pocong! This time if people think you're lying, you just say, I sumpah pocong, I never do it. Many Muslim leaders actually oppose this practice, deeming it inconsistent with Islamic teachings or associating partners with God. It's like people are placing the pocong on an equal level with God. Legally, the shroud oath has no legal basis and cannot be used as evidence in court. But interestingly, there have been cases where judges, particularly in regions with strong beliefs and traditions, consider permitting the pocong oath as a form of sworn oath in resolving disputes. So there is still a bit of weight if you were to do or execute a pocong oath in certain, I guess, states in Indonesia. In such situations, the legal consequences for someone found to have lied during the pocong oath ritual can be very serious, like charges of providing false testimony under oath, leading to criminal proceedings where the defendant could face severe criminal sanctions. So it's still, if you're still found to have lied that you made a pocong oath in court, you will face severe punishments, which in my opinion is a rather rare and interesting case where spirituality, religion and folklore blend with the formal and practical bureaucracy of a justice system. Like, it's quite an interesting thing to have happen, I guess. Only in Indonesia. Is it only in Indonesia? Actually, I think maybe other countries also might have this kind of thing. But say you're being accused of slaughtering your neighbor's goat. How do you prepare yourself for a sumpah pocong? You know, what if you are being accused of slaughtering goats? Your neighbors, you stole chickens from your neighbor's farm and you want to do a sumpah pocong to prove your innocence. What will you do? Well, don't worry, I got you. I got you, bro or sis. Step 1. Preparation. Rituals are usually performed in places considered sacred, such as mosques or graves. A white shroud, a shroud robe, and a copy of the Quran are required. A religious leader or respected community figure usually leads the ritual. Step 2. Packaging. The person who is going to swear is first bathed, similar to the process of bathing a corpse. He is then wrapped in a white shroud, like a corpse ready to be buried. The shroud is tied at several points: head, chest, waist, knees and feet, basically like a pocong. Step 3. Placement. The wrapped person is then laid facing the Qibla. So the Qibla is the direction to which Muslims turn to pray, which is effectively the direction of the Mecca. And this is something I didn't know. Like, I didn't know Muslims, when they are getting buried, their head has to face the Mecca. That's something new. I didn't know that. I thought only when praying. The Quran is then placed on his chest. Step 4. Taking the oath. The ritual leader recites certain prayers. The person taking the oath then says the oath out loud, and the oath usually contains a statement of innocence or honesty, accompanied by a request for punishment from God if he lies. After the oath is said, the shroud is open. So the guy says his oath inside the shroud. Once it's done, he opens and he's reborn, an innocent man. Step 6. Post-ritual. In some traditions, the person who makes the vow is required to bathe again as a symbol of self-cleansing and rebirth. There was sometimes a period of surveillance where the community watches to see if any strange events happen to that person, which could be considered punishment or perjury. In other words, it meant that he lied. And that's the process of doing a sumpah pocong. And while we are in Southeast Asia, we have to talk about one of the most superstitious countries in the world, renowned for its use of magic and black magic, the Philippines. From my understanding, Filipinos are very afraid of curses and black magic, and I guess it just goes to show how rampant it is in perhaps more rural parts of Philippines. But the general term for black magic in the Philippines is called kulam. Just a preface, I am by no means an expert in this, so if any of my Filipino viewers are watching, and I know that I do have quite a few, let me know in the comments of any personal experiences you have had with Filipino black magic. Filipino witches are believed to have powers that cause harm to other people covertly. Their targets are usually wrongdoers like thieves, adulterous spouses, or land grabbers. There are also true sorcerers who are said to have hereditary sorceress powers. Unlike healers, they do not consider the justice of their actions, so making them very, very dangerous. The latter type of sorcerers are often conflated with the evil supernatural beings capable of appearing human, like the Aswang and Manananggal, which I have also talked about in a previous video if you want to give it a watch. Kulam involves the use of beetles, effigies, or a boiling pot, or some other another type of representation of the target victim. These are usually linked by including body parts like hair or nail clipping. Yeah, and I realized like black magic and curses always involve the use of hair or nail clipping. You know, you have to use a certain part of your body, I guess, to link yourself to it. That's why people say don't cut your nails at night, if not witches will take it and...
What?
Yeah, well, in Japan, I think they believe so.
Like you shouldn't cut your nails.
You shouldn't cut your nails at night and leave it lying around. If not, a witcher might come and steal your nails. The sorcerer would then activate the spell by chants or symbols and then cause damage to the effigy to cause corresponding harm to the victim, sometimes sending objects to the victim's body, which can range from insects, stones, to pins. So it's something like voodoo dolls, I guess. Something like this, voodoo dolls. This object would be linked to the victim and they would fuck that thing up, punch it, and the victim would supposedly feel these effects. Earth, fire, herbs, spices, candles, and oils are often used for rituals, charms, spells, and potions. In some instances, the ingredients of the ritual themselves determine the effects. For example, adding seawater to a boiling pot linked to a victim is said to cause the victim's belly to swell and ache in time with the tides. So in high tides, the victim's belly will go up. In low tide, the belly will go back down. Then he must be like thinking like, what the fuck is going on to my stomach? Not sure how that's supposed to torture him. Maybe it's excruciatingly painful. Like, ah. And these things I've described are not just hearsay. In fact, these types of sorcery have been documented as early as the 17th century in the Philippines. There are actually many terms to describe the different kinds of witchcraft and sorcery in the Philippines. In fact, there's really a lot because it's quite prevalent in the Philippines. But one that fascinated me the most is the mambabarang. The mambabarang is a version of a sorcerer or sorceress who uses insects and spirits to enter the body of any person they hate. Mambabarang are ordinary human beings with black magic who torture and later kill their victims by infesting their bodies with insects. How they would do this is they would use a strand of a hair from their chosen victim and tie it to the bug or worms, which they will use as a medium. When they prick the bug, the victim immediately experiences the intended effect. In legends, however, the mambabarang keeps his swarm of carnivorous beetles in a bottle or a section of a bamboo, carefully feeding them ginger root. When the practitioner decides to employ his dark art, he performs a prayer ritual where he whispers instructions and identifies the victim to the beetles. So like, see that girl with the cap over there? Beetles, attack, enter, attack her. The destructive insects are then set free to seek out the victim and gain entry into the body via any bodily orifice. The nose, mouth, ears, or even the butthole. The victim will then feel the effects of the invasion of the insects through manifestations depending on the area of entry. For example, hemorrhoids if through the anus, earaches if through the ears, and other similar cases. The resulting illness is supposedly resistant to conventional medical treatment and only reveals its true nature when the victim succumbs and the eggs laid in the body hatch to issue forth flying insects. Then people would know, oh, this guy kena by the mambabarang already. He kena the beetle attack. But the more, I guess, scientific explanation for that is a beetle, a carnivorous beetle, would lay eggs in the already dead body and then, you know, it would hatch. That's what I read. Other malevolent powers are more direct. These include the ability to kill another person instantly with magic spells, the ability to cast curses or the evil eye, the ability to abduct a person's soul, or the ability to send evil spirits or familiar animals to possess or harm the victim. But how do you counter a mambabarang attack? How do you counter a sorcerer's attack? Well, if you yourself are a sorcerer, you can basically defend yourself from it. Sorcerer attacks are most commonly treated with sumbalik, which means counter spells or antidotes, which are themselves a form of sorcery and do not require interaction with the spirits. They purportedly deflect the effects of the curse and return it to the caster. So like, counter attack. That sounds pretty intense, dude. I'm imagining like Filipino sorcerers in Harry Potter. Expelliarmus! Mambabarang!
Counter attack.
Yeah, that's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. It was fun to research this topic. I always find it very fascinating how different cultures from all around the world have different ways of honoring similar taboo subjects like death and curses. Let me know in the comments if you have anything you want me to talk about in the next video. This video idea was actually recommended by one of you guys, so thank you for that, and consider subscribing if you did enjoy this video, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye bye. Mambabarang!